Hello, I'm Neil Roseanne.
And I'm Cole Betcher.
And this is the comic book vidcast from Group 13. Many people would call comic books a very different kind of media. They use graphic frames and text to tell tales of epic proportions. What once started as basic entertainment has now turned into big money. But how did it all start?
Flashback to the turn of the century. The year is 1901, and the first ever full-color comic book, Blackberries, has just been printed. You turn the pages and see what they are filled with words and actions. You just know it will be big someday. If you were this person, you would have been part of what the experts call the Platinum Age of comic books. The Platinum Age was when comic books were just starting out and when they were at their purest. Many of these comics at this time were known as funnies because they were comical.
It wasn't until the 1930s that comics became golden. In 1938, a bigger comic company known by Detective Comics launched a new line called Action Comics. Who headlined the first issue? None other than Superman. This launched comics into a whole new genre that we still observe today, the hero comics. The superhero comics were the most popular kind of comics up until the end of World War II. This age saw the rise of heroes such as Batman, Wonder Woman, and even Captain America. These heroes were widely popular with many soldiers at the time. The comic industry also supplied many ethnicities, particularly Jews, with jobs.
After World War II, the hero comic industry went flat for a few years, which forced many companies to close down their superhero franchises. This ushered in the Silver Era, which started in the late 1950s. There were new genres such as horror and teenage comics, though the last era saw ending in the superhero comics. This era was a resurrection of the superhero. Two companies drove the market in this time. Those two companies were Marvel and DC. They competed for readership and ultimately remade many of the heroes of the past. The emergence of underground comics in the 1970s ended the Silver Age and brought in the Bronze Age.
The Bronze Age was influenced by underground comics and the shuffling of major comic creators. The Bronze Age is also classified by being darker than many of the ages before it. This includes the death of many main characters and the addressing of issues such as drug abuse and rape. The final age of comics is the Modern Age. This part of comic history saw new, specialized comic stores starting to pop up around the country that offered the best of both worlds with underground comics and big business comics. These stores were vastly popular and became more than a store, but more of a culture.
At this time, the comic industry was booming. Sales were up all over the board and readership was at an all-time high. Then, the high came to the end. A paper shortage caused comic prices to rise to a much higher plateau than ever before. Technology, like the computer, also took away from the interest of comics. When the comic industry entered the 2000s, as a print medium, it no longer existed. Many of the stores around the nation had closed. A few publications by DC and Marvel still live on today. But the comic industry entered a new form, movies. Comic-based movies were the new face of the industry, and as of today, that looks like it is far from stopping.
The future of comics is uncertain. They will only be able to make so many movies, and once that runs out, there isn't much left. So we turn to Scott McCloud, an expert in comics, for some insider's information and a prediction about the future of comics. Here is a clip from a speech he did that we found on TED.com.
The monitor is just as limited as the page, technically, right? It's a different shape, but other than that, it's the same basic limitation. But that's only if you look at this monitor as a page, but not if you look at the monitor as a window. And that's what I propose, that perhaps we could create these comics on an infinite canvas along the x-axis and the y-axis as staircases. We could do circular narratives that were literally circular. We could do a turn in a story that was literally a turn. Parallel narratives could be literally parallel. X, Y, and also Z.
We believe that the comic industry is heading to a technology-based medium. Comics will try to save money and will no longer be available in paper. They will try to make the jump to tablets for readership.
Well, that wraps up our vidcast here for Group 13. I'm Neil Roseanne.
And I'm Cole Betcher.
And I hope you enjoyed this little travel through comic books. Thanks for watching.